Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and here I have a plate full of delicious kakis. Nothing too unusual about that. But some of those kakis are on a string. Well, who tied them on a string? It was me. Why did I tie them on a string? In order to ripen and preserve them. Well, sounds like quite a strange method. I think most people in the Western world have never heard of it or seen it. So why am I doing this with my kakis? Well, first let me introduce you to the different kakis I have here. This is all Dyospyrus kaki, the normal kaki plum. This is a modern Spanish variety, Riojo Brillante, a variety which is pretty good. Guess why? Well, kakis, they have been with mankind for thousands of years. They have been one of the most popular fruit in places like China and Persia and so on. Really tasty, one of the sweetest fruit you can have. It's basically like a huge portion of jam. Each fruit is like a handful or even a cupful of jam. But there is one problem with the kakis. They are sweet and tasty only after they turn to jam. They turn to jam on their own account, even on the tree, but as long as traditional kakis are still tough and firm, they are horribly astringent, horribly astringent. You eat one ripe-looking traditional kaki, you get dry mouth for hours. Well, the solution is to wait till the kakis are really soft like jam, but then the problem is they drop from the tree and you basically get a horrible layer of super sweet kaki flesh mixed with soil and dirt on the ground. Yeah, and then you have animals walking there and shitting there and so on, and you cannot use it anymore. So what did people do? Well, in the beginning, at least in West Asia and the Mediterranean, they had the tiny Dyospyrus lotus. The fruit were not heavy and juicy enough to fall to the ground before they rotted, so they could be picked and transported or kept on the tree without trouble. But as soon as Dyospyrus kaki was introduced into cultivation and big juicy varieties were selected, when they get ripe, the slightest gust of wind or somebody brushing against the tree or even just gravity will make them drop to the ground and create a puddle of jam. So what do we do with this dilemma? Hard and firm, easy to harvest, easy to transport, but completely non-edible, or soft and super sweet, but no shelf life at all. Basically, even picking it from the tree, 3/4 of it will run through your fingers and you'll only be able to eat 1/4 of the fruit. Well, modern varieties, for example, the Sharon from Israel or the Spanish Riojo Brillante, they have bred out those astringent chemicals. A little bit is left, but basically in this state, while it's still yellowish, orangish and quite hard, it's already sweet and edible. Of course, it's even sweeter and juicier when it turns to jam, but you can eat it in this hard state, so you can produce it in huge amounts, transport it, and it has a shelf life of up to several weeks. The funny thing is that those little fruit here, they were also sold to me as Riojo Brillante. In Germany, usually they say 2 qualities of Spanish Riojo Brillante. The big ones are sold by the piece, and when they're in season, they go for between 20 and 80 cents a piece. Small ones are being sold per kilogram, and when they're in season, they go between 1 and 3 euro per kilogram. Well, you might think, okay, that's quite a bargain. The small ones are a lot cheaper. They're just a bit smaller, but that's not the only difference. When they're still hard, they're usually, not always, quite horrible and astringent. So you pay little money for them, but you have to wait for days or even weeks for them to ripen. Sometimes they are good, sometimes they are like those. It's a matter of luck. They all sell them under the name Riojo Brillante, but I don't buy that. Well, I buy them, but I don't buy that. It's always the same name. So here we have big expensive Rioja Brillante. This is actually a very smallish fruit, but it's still one of the big and expensive ones, which is sweet when it's still hard. Here we have some cheaper Rioja Brillante, which is astringent while hard. And here, this fruit, and also this fruit with the leaf still attached. I harvested them from a tree on the Heidelberg University campus. And of course I don't know the variety. I'm sure it's Dyospyrus Kaki, but I don't know which variety. It's probably some variety which is adapted to the harsh German climate. Here we are almost at the limit of, well, we are actually almost beyond the limit of successful Kaki cultivation. I've seen Kaki trees even in colder climates, but there it's really a lottery game. Here it's kind of reliable. In some years they will freeze, in some years they will not be sweet, but let's say we're at the border of successful Kaki cultivation. So I don't know the variety, but I guess it's not the same as the commercial varieties from the Mediterranean climate in Spain. Well, in times when people did not have those modern varieties, and even today, older varieties are usually more resilient, easier to cultivate. People still cultivate them on a large scale. And in Asia, they found a way of preserving them. They discovered this method many thousand years ago. You peel them and hang them on a string. As you can see, those are all peeled and then hung on a string by the stalks, by the peduncles. Why am I doing this? Well, when they are still hard, they are astringent. I cannot eat them. But if I wait for them to get soft and ripe, they'll just fall from the tree. So what can I do? There are people who cut them off with scissors. Sometimes even they cut a complete branch and put it somewhere on a table or on a shelf and wait for them to ripen there in the heat of a nice heated apartment in winter. And yeah, at least when they're ripe, they don't fall to the ground from several meters. They just stay on the shelf and you catch them in time, you can eat them. But since people don't have an endless amount of shelves, and even those kakis don't last forever, they decided to dry them. Well, how do you dry stuff? One good way is to enable as much airflow as possible and suspend it in the air in some distance one from another. They get all the air they can handle. Usually those are being hung outdoors in some dry place which has a lot of air current, a lot of weak wind, and they are drying there for weeks or months. I've seen this in videos from China, from Iran, from Armenia, so I guess it's quite a widespread practice. But why do you peel them? Well, the skin, especially the waxy skin of a kaki, is a protection against many things, and one of the main things skin protects a fruit or a human from is evaporation. If you had no skin, your blood, your body liquids or the fruit juice would just evaporate. So you have the skin, which protects you from drying out too quickly. Okay, we remove the skin. We peel those kakis. Here is one I'm currently peeling. Well, then you get a new problem. The skin, of course, is also protection against infections, against bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other stuff. You remove the skin, you expose the fruit to fast rotting. And so it's even more important to suspend them in the wind so that they can dry quickly. This quickly is still a couple weeks, but after a couple days they get a little bit dryish, so usually it works. Because I have no balcony and because I'm gonna be gone for 6 weeks, I decided I'm gonna hang them in a room. In the room, well, the disadvantage is there is no wind. The advantage is it's quite warm, and also the air in winter in enclosed rooms is usually quite dry. So basically, I'm gonna hang about 7 fruit on the string. I'm gonna come back in 6 weeks. If I'm out of luck, I'll have 7 bowls of mold or of brown, rotten, disgusting stuff. If I'm lucky, I'll have 7 bowls of delicious, half-dried or 3/4 dried kaki fruit. So folks, this was a traditional way of preserving kakis, which of course I don't need for the Riojo Brillante, for the big one, but I'll do it just to compare the taste of the dried Riojo Brillante with the other varieties. So this was a traditional method of preserving kakis. I hope in 6 weeks I can make another video showing you the success. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the shops and supermarkets of Germany. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.